Good morning and welcome back to Cheche, live on Citizen TV. I'm Odwa Kamimo. If you're just joining us, we're extending the program slightly because, of course, our guest for the day, Jeremiah Kioni, who was the running mate on the Amani Coalition ticket, but also the former MP for Ndaragwa has just joined us with profuse apologies. He says he got the timing wrong, so we're extending the program just a little bit to, get your insights and, get you to answer some questions about politics as you see it now. First of all, what are Amani's fortunes, given that you obviously did not win? And we hear a lot about Amani being encouraged to go with the Jubilee side, and possibly that Musalia Mudavadi might be offered a cabinet post.
One is that let me apologize for stepping in late. Like you have mentioned, I think I got it all wrong in terms of timing. But I was in touch with one of your staffers, and I kept saying the difficulties I was going through, trying to rush here. Going forward, we have some 26 members of parliament, and those are the individuals whom we entrust with perhaps championing what we believed in Amani. On the issues of alliances, yes, the discussions have been there. We haven't signed anything because maybe you don't even need to sign anything. The question is that issues will come and they require to be interrogated, they require to be debated. And I think our position is that we will support issues as they come and criticize the government when we should. But working with the government of the day, I don't think we have any objection to that. Mm-hmm. But again, in a manner that allows everybody has space.
Okay.
Yes.
While we've been waiting for you, a lot of our listeners, viewers, have been texting in asking this question that was first raised in the media during the elections, claiming that and wanting verification about whether you voted for Musalia Mudavadi or not. Because apparently, at the polling station where you voted, there was not a single vote cast for Musalia Mudavadi.
Unfortunate that this is an issue that even the media has kept on and unnecessarily for too long. I bought space in the newspaper to clarify that the polling station that was even being talked about by the media is not even where I registered. It is not within my county. If you go to where I voted, you know that there were votes that were there for Mudavadi. And also, importantly, is that when I was voting, the media covered me live. They were there.
The issue is whether you voted for Musalia Mudavadi, not whether you actually voted.
And why they are saying I did not vote for Mudavadi is because they say there were no votes in the polling station that I vote. And it was a question of being a little bit more diligent, check the polling station and check whether there were any votes for Mudavadi. And that would have helped clarify that. But I wouldn't want to go beyond saying that I did, because though that is not an issue that I should be discussing on air. But also to say that it is now a subject, is a matter before court, and because it's defamation, and the media houses that misrepresented that fact will certainly
be receiving letters.
And I think they have. Would expect to hear them say more in court. Because I think it was a little bit irresponsible on the part of the media. But it was started by the social media.
Yeah. Yes. Isn't that just a light matter you can, by this clarification, set aside and move on?
The fact that
going to the extent of suing.
I'll tell you, Makari.
Yeah.
The fact that a newspaper would first of all carry the correct story, and 2 days later you twist it, shows there was malice. It is not just a mistake. There was something that was being driven. And why I would want it set right in court is because I believe that it is still something laced with tribalism the fact that I'm a Kikuyu, there's no way I can be behind a person from Western Kenya and even vote for that person. There is the need, there was the desire to depict Kikuyus as very deceitful.
Yeah.
And the fact that this is yet another Kikuyu, how can, it's just, so it's actually, that is why I'm in court.
But can I just,
yes, and I want to tell you.
He does, but let me, of course.
What I have stood for, and if you go through my parliamentary thing, has had a very little to do with what people wanted to bling out during that thing. And you would see, even when you were campaigning, if you go through the social media, there was some element of that. So it's not something that was just started during the voting day. There was still some drive from that, and we don't want to speculate with that. But there we are.
David?
You say that this thing began on the social media. I'm just wondering, of course this has occupied you a bit. Would it be that you changed polling stations so that it was presumed that you normally vote here, and that polling station did not register any votes for Musalia, so it was presumed also that you did not vote when, in fact, you had changed stations, or was that your customary station?
I have voted in that station since I started voting. I attained the age. That is, and remember, I was also running for the Darago parliamentary seat until I was named as a running mate. So, a little bit of being careful with what you report would have, would not have given that mileage. And that is why I went to court, because it was not a mistake. It was, there was a drive, there's something that was being driven.
Okay.
And since we don't belong to that school, we would want to allow the courts to deal with
Let's move on from there and go back to...
I believe that that was a pure case of trying to,
Right. Before we come to
the person in the long
right. We have just 30 minutes. You raised the point about an effort to malign you because of your ethnicity. And before you came on, we talked about ethnicity. We talked about how we move forward. How do you think that should be done if you say that you're the subject of some sort of campaign to depict you on the basis of your ethnicity as being deceitful?
I think going forward, we need to encourage Kenyans to have faith in people who don't speak like them and don't look like them. Don't just align yourself to those who speak like you and look like you. This is, we need to bring out, we are talking about, Article 10 talks about the national values. And national values are not going to be realized in this country unless we still are a country. We talk of national values. National values will only be able to benefit us when we come together as a nation. But what came out during our last election is another country. And I think it is important that I say this at this point, that every time you come across two people in the streets, you should be careful to remember that one voted this way, the other one voted the other way, because the country was cut into two. So you have to be very careful of what you say, accommodate one another, reach out until we are able to achieve and attain what I think our constitution says to do.
I wanted to ask you about your future. When they were giving list of people to be nominated, party nominations.
Party nominations.
There were claims that your name was there. Of course, it's no longer. What is now your future, or that of the Deputy Prime Minister, that now you have lost?
I'm only 5 years older than I was when I joined Parliament.
Yes.
There was a lot that I was doing and I had done by the time I was getting to that age, 5 years ago. And that will still continue being done. I like what Abraham Lincoln said about politics, and you should never take politics as a career. If you take it as a career, you'll always do what is popular, never the right thing. And it's like you cannot move out and continue. So you are there and you want to die there and everything, but I want to tell you, since it's been a bit relaxing, I have had more time with my family, and I am looking forward to do a few more things that I would have liked to do. If there is nation building that I can still do, I'll still be available.
But okay,
let's break it down.
Let's look at
you're about 48. You are a land valuer,
Yes.
and you've also lectured at the University of Nairobi. You've been very general in responding to
And I'm
Mutegi's
also a
question.
lawyer.
And you're also a lawyer.
I
Are you going
haven't
back
done
to those
practicing.
businesses,
Oh,
or are
yes.
you waiting to be
Yeah,
called
no,
into nation building? Let's be
And I'm
clear.
also a farmer.
And you're also a farmer.
In
So quite
fact,
a lot to occupy
even as
you.
I was receiving this yesterday, the call last evening, I told Nyawera that I was actually headed to Daragwa to look at the things that would interest me in my farm.
Such as?
If I'm called, I am a dairy farmer.
Dairy farmer.
Yes. If I'm called to do something there, I will do it. But I will tell you that
So we shouldn't
I will
worry
not-
about
I
your
will not-
financial fortunes changing because you're no longer...
I did not change my residential address. I did not change the church I go to. I dress the same way I was dressing before I go to Parliament. I drive myself. I used to drive myself. I never went for the bodyguard. I have never carried a gun. I remained the same person who had gone to Parliament. So I'm continuing and I'm happy. Of course, and by the way, less of phone calls, more of private life.
But let's just in the manner of reflecting back on the race, the pain, the tribulations of running that race. Just how did it feel, and the aftermath of it? Any
It's
regrets?
it's
Did
very
you think
draining.
you made a wrong decision to go against the grain, because Central was hugely TNA? You stuck out your neck with Musalia. Things didn't happen. Any regrets around that?
Not at all. In fact, the thing I enjoy most is that I was able to do something different. I have no regret at all. I am happy that I was given 5 years by the people of Daragwa to serve them, and I must thank them even now. I know that I had started preparing to defend my seat. I know that I would have had a strong showing as to whether it would have resulted in going back to Parliament. We will never get to know. But I want to tell you, Makari, that I have no regrets. It is a really draining exercise to do a national campaign, both in terms of your body and resources and everything. But it is also an eye-opener because you get to know more about the country at that time when you are campaigning. But let me also say that what I believed in and what I still believe in is something I'll do it again if given an opportunity. I'll still do it again. It has nothing to do with going against the grain. It is carrying on with what you believe in. This issue of the grain, I hope that by 2022 it will have gone away and we'll start dealing with issues. When I was vying for the parliamentary seat 5 years ago, one of the things that I wanted to do, and I asked myself, and I was favored enough to have had an opportunity, was to get into doing a new constitution. Why? Because the issue of the constitution was here being used as a platform to look for power. Now that the constitution is on the table, nobody can now use it as a platform to look for power. But now we have another issue, that we create more fear in another person, so that it is not, you are not voting because of anything, you are voting because we are so fearful of this other person that we vote this way. We don't vote because we fear the poverty issues in the country, the unemployment level in our country. If we are able to bring those issues on the table, we will stop seeing you as Makari and see you as with the ability which you have to resolve this thing that I fear and we all fear. And that's something that I will stand for again and again.
You say that your eyes were opened on the national campaign trail. Just share with us some of the things
I went to
you
a place called
observed.
Kisigitini, Lamu, the farthest island. And I tell you, after today, it still touches me. To know that 50 years down the line, there are people who cannot, for them to take a cup of water like this, it must be brought by a ship. Because they are surrounded by the Indian Ocean, and all of it is salty, they cannot drill a borehole. And the government has not done anything 50 years down the line. To get Kenyans in that kind of a situation tells you, yes, there is something that there are those actually who say, yes, we are now going to Kenya. It is for real. We went to some places in Meru where they grow milas somewhere deep, and you see the kind of the difficulties that they have getting the milas from their farms to the main roads. And these things are real, and you can keep talking about them from the comforts of Nairobi. And perhaps with the devolution, we are trying to get nearer them. And I tell you, if you don't get to move, you continue going with the grain because you think that is what is fashionable. But there are issues that needs to be solved by Kenyans. And we need to go beyond the issue of being a country and become a nation.
We're talking about resources. Maybe you can tell us just how much did you spend, maybe whether you drained your family or your resources, or give a perspective of the money spent.
That I will not tell you, Mutegi. I can be that blunt with you, but it does drain resources. It's a very expensive thing. Very, very expensive. It can leave you a pauper if you are not careful. But I think what is important is that we should actually be able to limit. We didn't do that in the 10th Parliament.
We did not pass.
Yes, we did not pass a bill to, put a ceiling, because that again will always be an issue. If you have resources in this country and flood the country with all the T-shirts that have your color, and you create that perception that you have everybody on your side, everybody else will be, it's like plucked out of the lace, and you look like you are not there in the first place.
The reason why I ask about resources is that because people are claiming, and it's on public knowledge, that URP was formed by the state. And therefore, you didn't use your own money. UDF, sorry, yes. UDF. UDF was, yeah.
If that was to be the case, we would not have been struggling. We would have had more shoppers than the others. But you see, we were driving, we were walking, we were doing all those kind of things. Again, these are debates that
isn't it true? I mean, I sit here, Kioni, and look at you, and I have this opinion I'm struggling with. That here is a man who took a gamble. You would have been re-elected as MP for Ndaragwa. You took a gamble, following up on what Mutegi is saying, that UDF had the patronage of the state. It had resources at its disposal. But the game changed along the way. Today, you'd be deputy president. Things changed. Somebody took a corner and decided we can abandon this, or it wasn't working for whoever was masterminding it, and decided to go ahead with somebody else. And the game ended up where it is.
If that was happening behind the shadows without our knowing, but I can tell you that what was driving that was a different thing. Certainly we started on very different platforms, where we had a number of members of parliament who believed in the cause, but could not withstand the euphoria that was, and as things continued unfolding, and they quickly leaned back to their cocoon. You know, you
are originally about 50 members.
You run away quickly to the least common denominator of the tribe when you feel very threatened, and that is what happened. But on the issue of being funded by the state, we will always allow people to continue saying it, but to my knowledge, I did not see any help from that end. If there was, we would have used the provincial administration. Yes. If there was, perhaps the provincial administration would have been helpful, would have, the Prime Minister would have listed us along the people he listed when he did a letter saying that these are the agents helping this kind of an outfit.
Okay, let's go to, let's move on to what is happening now. A government is being formed. Kenyatta is going to form his cabinet shortly. What are your expectations of this government?
One of the things that I would expect, and I don't sit here as a person who has the ability to advise at all, but an opinion, is, as I mentioned, every time you come across two individuals in the street, you need to remember that one voted this way, the other one voted the other way. The biggest challenge is to reach out so that you have a government that involves genuinely, not just picking people perhaps who you are hawks in those regions, but people who will bring that variety from across the country. That is going to be the biggest challenge. I don't want to borrow the words of the outgoing president, but last night he said, what the hell would it be that you are elected if you are not thinking about the unemployment level of our young people?
And this is in reference to the governors, which we're
discussing. And I think it goes across the board. The biggest responsibility is to ensure that the government is responding to the issues of the youth. They must get the young people engaged in gainful employment or gainful enterprises. Promises that were made, those are going to be an issue because at times when you are campaigning, you make promises and then you don't have the resources to match them. But I think the biggest challenge is that issue of national outlook and ensuring that every other person feels part of the government. You remember that is why in the Constitution we say that in forming the cabinet, the 24 of them, there must be regional balancing.
Yes.
And that is going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
Because again, you are in a system where you need parliament, you need to be careful with parliament, you don't want it to be manned by people who can, you know, who not control things, so that so the balancing of that will be a difficult thing and something but I believe Uhuru Kenyatta has the ability to do that.
Right, and following up, so far we have seen MPs threatening to pass a motion to disband or at least clip the wings of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. We've seen governors agitating about flags to the extent, as you said, that the outgoing president told them off. Now that you're out of it for the time being, what advice would you give to your fellow politicians, given that they don't really inspire a lot of confidence within the Kenyan context?
And one of the things that is a bit relaxing is that you have during the time that one is out here, at least the insults are not hitting at you and your family. That's something that I must say that was painful, because you see your children really struggling with the insults that are coming from. Last night, 2 nights ago, my daughter asked me and my son, how is it that in school we are taught not to insult people, and when we come out it looks fashionable for the adults to insult those elected? You know,
how old are your children?
One is finishing pupillage, the other one is going into university, the other one is in Form 2. Again, I did not change schools.
Okay.
Because I was a member of parliament.
So they're not in private schools?
They may be in private schools that I could have afforded when I was in private practice. So they'll continue the same life. But I think one of the things I would advise is that they would rather allow others to push the issue of salaries on their behalf. They may have a case. I don't want to say more. But the more they try to push it, the more it becomes unpopular, and they become vulnerable.
It occurs to me from the way you're speaking that...
Let me also say something.
You believe they have a case?
Let me say something that I think will also become a big problem. But, we have the issues of nominated members of parliament, whom I think should be enjoying lower salaries.
Nominated.
They should be enjoying lower than even those elected. Because... let me now bring you to the B part of what I think. The more we continue thinking that members of parliament and those elected should be paid higher salaries, we make the game outside very untidy. Because people will always clamor to become members of parliament, members of the Senate, members of the county government, not because they want to go and serve, but because of the amount of money they are going to draw out of. These are positions that should attract more patriotic persons who want to see the country move on, as opposed to people who are going to look for employment. A very controversial statement. But from that point of view, I would actually be encouraging the current members of parliament to help the CLC. Is that what the salaries are? To help it even deal with the salaries for the 12th parliament. So that, because they cannot do anything with the salaries now, but they can still be able to tamper them downwards for the 12th parliament and deal with the issues of how much do we pay nominated members of parliament. The wage bill in this country will be a big issue. But if you then think of what the members of parliament must go through, you sympathize. But going forward, yes, I hold the view that the salaries should come down so that the competition that you see during elections and the stakes are so high that people are ready to do damage to others. But if we make it, we roll it. Even members of the nominated member of parliament can even be paid sitting allowances, so that even dying to be on the nomination list is driven less.
Actually, Leader made that point during the presidential debates. But the question also becomes, should we also not be focusing on reducing the pressures on members of parliament by getting other sectors of public service working?
And that is why I think with the governance in place, you actually already have reduced some pressures from the members of parliament. But again, educating Kenyans as what is the role of a member of parliament, not these other harambes and the rest.
But you haven't justified your proposal that the nominated MPs should earn less than the elected ones.
Why is because, look at, you have a constituency that you have to keep driving back to. You have a constituency office that you are expected to be in. So there is a whole 40,000 people who voted for you, perhaps from 100,000, a population of 100,000 plus within a constituency. When you're dealing with the nominated members of parliament, and I say this with a lot of respect, we still are not there where we are saying that they represent special interests.
Yes.
These are individuals who are on the list because they helped the party in one way or another. And it's like it is payback time. So you are nominated to be rewarded for what you did to help the party. A very useful contribution. But you must look for ways of reducing the stakes. The stakes in serving this country is in the amount of money that you get, as opposed to the kind of service that are available.
Anyway, I would hold a different view because, I mean, we would be trying to make it work so that those nominated actually represent the special interests rather than try to downgrade them. Then, in fact, why don't we just do away with them if they're not serving the purpose, as you clearly state?
Maybe in this parliament you see them doing some special work, but I haven't seen it in the past. And I don't expect it either even in this one.
But there's something just before, we were haggling about the governors and their show at Naivasha this weekend. And
the storming out.
They don't feel that.
And the demand for flags.
Yeah, I mean, I would be interested to hear what you think about their claims if you are aware of their, show. And also, especially because when you were in Parliament, I remember you very clearly agitating for the scrapping of the Senate. Even after we had passed this constitution with the Senate, you are the one who tried to move a motion or create a movement to scrap the Senate. Is that still merited in view of the country's
Perhaps now we are past that position because it's not going to be easy for anybody to try and scrap the Senate. But let me tell you that going forward, these things will come to pass. The cost of running this structure will be heavy. And the amount of money that will eventually be available for the governors to do anything on the ground will continue reducing. I believe that the governors need to be given some form of autonomy. They need to be allowed to determine more of what happens within their county. Of course, within the knowledge that we have that central government. But we should not stifle them in any way. My talking of scrapping the Senate, it was not just the Senate. I had also talked about the commissions, the constitutional commissions. In other countries, those commissions are being served by 3 commissioners. We have 9 in all our commissions. Ask them doing what? If you ask some of the chairmans of the commission, they will actually tell you that some of the members who are put in those commissions have never had a contribution to make, because the areas are even so very technical. But we put them there to balance the regions. Balance the regions at the cost of the taxpayers, because the taxpayer must pay that. So we need to come and nationalize these things. Now that we are coming off the difficulties that we had of 2007, and also the issues, we now are aware that marginalization is not something that should be allowed in this country. Regional balancing should be there. But on the whole, not on specific things. So my talking about the Senate is that Senate will now have to look for work to do. They would have to, and in a short while, you already saw it with the governors haggling for space. I would expect the Senate to start doing the same thing with the National Assembly. If you look at the Constitution, and I was part of the 27 in Naivasha, the responsibility that we had initially given to the Senate were whittled down, left to almost the point of just being the work of impeachment, and perhaps overseeing the county government. But they are overseeing the county government, but the constitution allows Treasury to almost do everything.
Yes.
So it's like there is a paper tray, just passing papers down the line, but literally not having the ability to change anything. The formula that will come to be passed by the Senate will have been worked elsewhere, and them is really, so you cannot quite, but there is time for them to get space for themselves. And that informed me on the issue of the Senate. Some of the individuals in the Senate now agreed with me. I remember my good friend Mugatana telling me, Bwana, I'm looking for this seat. Allow us to deal with it when I'm inside there, but I agree with you. Badu was also another friend of mine who said, I agree with you, but because of the political positions you take and I take, allow me to disagree with you on this. So it is something that objectively you can look at for the good of the destiny, not to deal a blow to the issue of devolution, but to strengthen and ensure that there is more money.
But do you think there is political power, the political will?
There is no political will, and I don't see it happening.
So there's no devolution?
No. I was saying I don't think there will be any political will to deal with the Senate and do away with it. That's going to be the biggest test for this government. How do you deal with devolution and to make it work? Because Kenyans want it to work.
If you see the structure that has been set up by the Office of the President, the people who are taking over, handing over, there are 22 ministries. And the major ministries, they are not involved in ministries. They are in the national government. So it looks like the governor and his team will have very little to do.
But what they need to do is in the Constitution. And we should all remain faithful to the Constitution. The Constitution has clearly enumerated all the things that should be done by the county government and those that should be done by the central government. When the civil servants do the whole structure alone, they are likely, they would want to, there is that human nature. You want to preserve your area. But that needs to be challenged. And I still think the governors need a little bit more autonomy. They need to be allowed to develop their areas. We need to see those things moving. But we cannot see them with them becoming like departments of ministries.
Let me go back to the situation where you explained that every two people you see, one vote and this way and the other one vote and way. And you want us to have a normalcy and work together as a country. And in fact, I saw in the Facebook the other day something written there, Nyanza, si Kenya. It's like they are going to have a thing like Mombasa, Pwani, si Kenya. How do you expect Wananchi to get involved to understand that we are one country, despite the elections, if the leadership itself is even now not accepting situations as they are?
We cannot give up. I don't want to go back to this, but when we were getting into UDF, and even my sticking on and pushing in UDF with Musalia, this is one of the things that we are saying. And if you go through the clips, we kept saying, if we are not careful, we'll end up with a polarized country, north and south. And it is important that we look for a middle ground where people can feel, yes, we all belong here. That's going to be a challenge for this government. And going forward, it is important that we now encourage one another that what we don't need is, we don't need the alliances of tribes, because that alienates others. However much you try.
If I stop you a little bit. Yesterday I saw Western people. They want to meet as Western, despite all the political parties. There was a meeting called, I think, by somebody, that they want to meet as Western.
And I think that is what should be brought out as being remembrance of Wangari Maathai, that the bird was using its beak to try and put off the fire in the forest. I think we have to do our bit, all of us, however difficult it is. It looks monumental, you want to coil away and give up, but we have to do our bit until we end up with a nation, because we are still in the process.
Looking at the composition of the House, both the Parliament and the Senate, what is your opinion? Just, it's huge, very many fresh people, a lot of old guard or your peers gone.
That is where the statesmanship will be required from those up the hill, because there is a lot of Parliament can be used the long way or the right way. When you have control of Parliament and you mean good for the nation, you can get a lot of things going right.
Actually, there was a question.
If you allow and it is very easy for this to happen when you're in power, the dictatorship of one party to creep back, then you lose the nation. So again, an opportunity that can be used very well by those in the up the hill.
There was a question from one of our viewers asking whether you would see yourselves aligning yourselves with CORD or ODM to form a more stronger opposition, given, as you said, the challenge of dealing with a stronger, majority.
But again, I personally don't believe in opposing for the sake of opposing. I believe in using the time available to ensure that there are changes. If changes will come by opposing a negative thing, we'll do it. If changes will come by supporting something we think is positive, we'll do it. And I think that
But you can do that from either side, can't you? Even within the opposition, it's called,
you can do that from either side, and that is why it may not be always necessary to sign in papers, and especially if you want to live to the spirit of what you put down in writing. It is important to say that, yes, we'll support the government of the day, but why are we supporting it if it is delivering to Kenyans?
But the drift now, Mr. Kioni, seems to be, and I would be surprised if this doesn't happen, if UDF doesn't join the Jubilee coalition in Parliament. And the reason is to have a stake of state opportunities. In fact, when you are trying to join them, you're already bidding for deputy speaker or something. So it's all the same old game. Where is the nation, where is the public interest in the service of even your own party?
But how to go? Makari, even as we set to campaign and ask Kenyans to give us the mandate to run the country, why were we doing that? So that you can be in government and change things towards or take the direction that you think would benefit Kenyans. That clamour for that opportunity will always be there. So even when you are looking for a position of deputy speaker, it is, I keep saying, it should not be for personal gain. It is because you want an opportunity to be in a place where you can influence things to benefit the country. And that is the trust that, the only thing is that Kenyans would have to give you that trust. For you to get that trust, it doesn't take a day. But that does not mean that you just go to the opposition to oppose everything the government does.
Yes,
no,
and opposition
you only be opposing.
A strong check.
A strong check, and I agree. Yeah. That I agree. But you don't go to oppose just because you want to get to power. Because that has been our culture.
But okay, as maybe we wind up, I mean, you had the experience of the last parliament. You guys there were being whipped into shape into this, depending extremely on partisan interests. Sometimes even where the public looked like it was this way. MPs would gang up even to protect one of their own. So the fear, therefore, even with this parliament, is that if people are going to join this side because they'll give us a cabinet position, we can get deputy speaker or whatever, or committee chairman or here and there, when will you dissent when, in fact, the train begins moving against public interest?
That is going to be, it has a lot to do with the personal characters of those members. I remember when I was in Parliament, the issue of Miss came, we were almost 15 of us with Karwale, saying, yes, it is clear you stole Miss. Maybe it was not useful, but I still, it's something. You still have a critical number of people who still can help in that check. But I agree, it was very easy to get the Parliament to swing this side or that side. But there was still a number of people whom you could actually identify that will start with an issue to the end. And it matters not whether it's a person you think you should be studying with or not. And I want to again say, that is why I'm also in court, because that defamation was trying to injure some of the things I still stood for, even in Parliament. I wasn't whipped left, right, and center. The issues that I took on the floor was not because so-and-so called me. No, it's because I also was passionate about that particular issue.
Okay, so we've got to wind up now. Final question. Do you think that you've lost relevance politically, given that, you're not the deputy president and you're no longer an MP?
Time will tell, and I think the place to remain relevant is not just within Parliament. Again, the media has it's a responsibility to play. And now there is, with all these people elected from all corners of the country, the center of attraction has been spread out. So we'll also see more readers coming from elsewhere. But if we have served our time, so be it. If we had our time, so we'll move on in life. Maybe if we will still be useful, we'll still be there.
Maybe I should ask the final
one. And that's where...
How long are you going to be in UDF?
I am going to be in UDF.
Until the next election? We won't see you switch parties again.
I am going to be in UDF.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. And that's where Cheche ends this week. With many thanks to you, Jeremiah Kioni, for showing up. He's part of the Amani Coalition, UDF party member, he says, till the next election. We appreciate your time on Cheche this morning. Our thanks also to David Makali and Muteginja, our panelists. I'm Udwa Kamimo. My thanks to you for watching and for sending us your thoughts and opinions. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you.